This week on Arizona Illustrated, white supremacy and hate in Tucson.
I think it's easy for people to fall into this, oh, well, Tucson is a safe place. That doesn't happen here. And they just need to understand it does.
The Saguaro Ball, dancing in the desert.
You know, at the rehearsal, people came and they were just so excited and they were talking about their gowns. And, you know, I was like, you're really gonna get up at 5 a.m. and do this?
And putting waste to work, a new trend in composting.
I love after 4 months I have that finished processed human manure. I'm in the soil around my fruit trees and then grab an apple, grab a peach off that fruit tree. It's a delicious cycle.
Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Nationally, here in the United States, hate crimes are on the rise. Expressions of white supremacy and acts of hate seem to be in the headlines on a daily basis. At a time when diversity is being celebrated as one of our great strengths and new rights are being afforded to Americans, it is also true that racism, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, and anti-Semitism are alive and well. And these Tucsonans have stories to tell about them.
I got my first job at the Daily Star. I was working as a copy girl. I was like so excited, and it was like such a big deal.
My partner at the time, we had left the East Coast. He was Jewish, I was black.
I was in a bookstore getting some books in, for one of my kids in the college. I remember I was bending down looking for something. And
my first week on campus as a postdoc, I was helping out with the conference. And so I was taking a bunch of professors. We were having dinner together and worked with the organizer. I said, I'll take these guys home. This was maybe about 10:30 at night. Pulled over to the parking lot on Cherry Street, just south of Speedway, so that I could hop out, ask my passengers, hey, let's figure this out. Where are we going? Let me look at your map. Okay, cool.
And then one day I came in, and this guy, he was from New York. He came in and he said, Lola, can I talk to you?
So we were invited to go to a party where I was the only man of color. There were about 40 gay white men there.
UAPD pulled a U-turn, had me put my hands up because they thought that I was trying to steal my own car.
and I heard a voice behind me say something like, well, that's a waste of a good towel.
And he says, well, I've been appointed to tell you that this is going to be your last day.
They're asking my passengers, are you okay? Are you, like they thought they were in the middle of a carjacking.
I kind of stood up and I said, excuse me, were you talking to me?
And my partner at the time, Neil, was in a circle of men, and someone said, who brought the darky with them to the party?
I'll tell you, he said, it's, if you were in a large city someplace, this job would be a perfectly okay thing for you, but you don't fit here.
The floodlight directly on me with a trigger-happy cop with his hand on his taser telling me to move or don't move.
That's because I'm just going to tell you, you just don't fit here. That was racism.
Every time there has been progress by black folks in particular, but I think the same could be said about any marginalized group, there has been a corresponding backlash, what Carol Anderson at Emory University in Atlanta calls white rage.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. At least one person is dead and several are injured tonight after protests and counter-protests turned violent in Charlottesville, Virginia. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe declared a state of emergency.
It happened after slavery ended. It happened after segregation ended. It happened at the beginning of affirmative action programs.
We want our kids to grow up in a country where they have access to the best schools and the best teachers.
It happened during the Obama years. I mean, every single thing that seems to push people of color, particularly black folks, forward is responded to with this hateful, rage-filled reaction on the part of certain white people. The election of Barack Obama and the re-election in 2012, there were a number of people who were under the impression that we had attained some kind of post-raciality as a society, that, well, we've attained this spot, we're never going to go back to the sort of days of dog-whistling racism and appealing to racial resentment, and those days are over. And I think there were some of us who knew that this is very much embedded in the American political process.
Will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us.
We have a system of racial inequity and white supremacy that we all sort of are part of, for good or for bad. And we're either responding to it and trying to challenge it, or we're part of it and we're collaborating with it. And one of the ways we collaborate with it is with our silence about just the day-to-day stuff.
Because it's not on our news every night, or we're not hearing about somebody doing something like that, I think it's easy for people to fall into this, oh, well, Tucson is a safe place. That doesn't happen here. And they just need to understand it does.
In July of 2016, I was sitting at my desk and I got a call from a reporter who was covering a story in Phoenix in court.
A wave of anti-Semitic vandalism and threats. Jewish centers, cemeteries, and schools are being targeted across the country, including right here in Arizona.
This individual was arrested for suspected terrorism.
March the 13th, 2017, there was some community members that had come to pray the early morning prayer, and they had noticed that the door was open, it had been broken in.
After weeks of sweeping vandalism against Jewish communities across the U.S., now another religious center is being targeted.
Over the weekend, a break-in and...
The place had been vandalized. There was copies of the Quran thrown everywhere, pages ripped out and scattered all over the floor. It's like your core values being, desecrated.
He had identified in open court that the Tucson JCC was an aspirational target of his. We have probably 17,000 people a week that come through our doors. People from 6 weeks old up to 106.
All the murders and homicides that have been attributed to terrorists in the last year were attributed to right-wing, white supremacist, or white nationalist terrorists. There have been 40 to 50, last time I checked the numbers, folks who've been murdered by domestic right-wing white terrorists, but we don't even use that language for them. If I know Jim over in the HR department, then I have an in and a shot at the job. If I know Tom over in accounting, right, he's gonna write a letter, he's gonna put in a good word for me, and I've got a better shot at a job. And half the jobs are being filled that way. Well, in theory, that's not racist. In theory, that's not sexist. In theory, that's just, oh, no, it's an old boys network. The problem is that in practice, who are the people that Jim or Tom are more likely to know and therefore recommend, as opposed to the people they're less likely to know? And the research says they're more likely to know other guys like Jim and Tom. They're more likely to know other white dudes who went to the same colleges, who played the same sports, who were in the same fraternities, who do the same stuff. And they're not bad guys. Like Jim and Tom are fine. They're decent dudes, right? They're not racist or sexist in the sense that we would think of that word, but they are perpetuating a process of exclusion just by virtue of the way that they think about, oh, who'd be good for the next job here at my company or whatever it is, right? That's a form of racism.
Yeah, you're okay. All right. Tucson Second Chance Community Bail Fund, can I help you? It's people saying, speak English. It's people saying, we can't teach your cultural history. It's white women saying to brown women at the Women's March that you're only there to be decorations, but that your agendas in your communities are not being centered in our conversations. That's why we can have cops at this event and not concern how that impacts you and how that looks for your community. A charge is nothing more than that. It's not a conviction. A person's presumed to be innocent. But even so, we know that black and brown kids get suspended, or criminalized and sent into juvenile courts more often. We know that our kids that people of color are stopped more often. We know that if you're a black person in Arizona and you're convicted of a drug offense, you're gonna get 50% more prison time than a white person convicted of that same offense. So it's like the thing that's happening is as you pull off the facade of niceness and you start really seeing whose backs are being broken by the system.
Sharing when you're used to everything feels like oppression. It feels like the end of the world. When white folks, and particularly white men, are actually having to share space, whether that's politically, economically, culturally, or whatever else, with people of color, with LGBTQ folk, with women as women, with non-Christians, with working class folks, whatever it is, it seems like, oh my God, the wheels are coming off the bus. Like, I'm not in the same position that I was, and that's true.
There's a certain amount of attack that they feel upon them, but here's the weird part. Whenever I ask them, how are you being attacked? They can never put their finger on it. I ask, I feel censored by political correctness. Well, what happened? Did something happen in a class? Did someone call you out? Was there an intense, uncomfortable conversation that occurred? No, it's just a feeling that I have.
I always say we all live in fear. And the way I define fear is forever engaging in antiquated realities.
We're here at this moment, and if we can build a better future or a better environment for our community now, then we should do that.
Yeah, we want the government to do the right thing. We want the policies in place. We want the courts to do the right thing. But while we're waiting for them to do the right thing, or if they never do the right thing, what do? You have more power than you think, right? You're a member of a community. You might be a member of a church or a synagogue or a mosque or whatever. You might have kids in school or you might not, but you might have a job where you're working with other people every day. And so you're in these various locales where you have an opportunity to raise issues, to ask questions, to push for change.
This is not a time for status quo people. We need boldness. But boldness doesn't come from a community of complacency. So what I think the good thing that's happening in Tucson right now is that we are now starting to have this energy and this vision of what's possible. People are now saying, we can do better. What kind of world do you really want? What kind of world are you willing to fight for? Because this one is unfair, it's racist, it's destructive, it's oppressive, it's destroying lives, and we need to stop it.
When performance artist Kimi Eisele first conceived of honoring Saguaro National Forest and our flagship species, the saguaro, she reflected on the importance of spending time in nature and the protection of our public lands. From the Sonoran Desert, this is Saguaro Ball.
Kimi told us we needed to dress up. And we are such a casual town that we don't dress up that much.
You know, when you go to a dance, you dress up. And I thought, 10 people are probably gonna sign up for this. And then, at the rehearsal, people came and they were just so excited and they were talking about their gowns and I was like, you're really gonna get up at 5 a.m. and do this? I had this vision to do this Fellini-esque event about a year and a half ago, and I knew that the centennial was coming up, so it seemed an appropriate time.
Okay, y'all, you may start finding your dance partner.
We are here to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the National Park System, to honor our park, the Saguaro National Park, and then within that, the flagship species of the saguaro.
Darling, the sunshine grows brighter when you are by my side. You make my troubles seem lighter. No matter.
The project is called Standing with Saguaros. I'm the director, and it's presented by Borderlands Theater.
Dark and dreary.
I had been exploring this idea of what does it mean to duet with the saguaro cactus. So how do you partner, which means a lot of different things, obviously. How do you partner with another species?
I'll remember your love in my prayer. I love the silver in your hair.
It was really unique. She's a wonderful artist in so many ways, but always is willing to take the extra time to get more people on board. It's a group event, and it's always fun.
Saguaros all have their own personalities, and they have different ways of standing, different ways of moving. It's really special to have a place set aside for us to spend time with other species. This is a beautiful act of Congress that gives us this gift that we can spend time outside and know that plants and animals have a certain kind of protection that they don't have elsewhere.
Saguaro National Park is 80% wilderness, and so we have this wilderness area in an urban area. We have a growing population of 1 million people, and we will never, ever not have this wilderness.
You know, by celebrating this particular species, you know, we then celebrate, you know, all the other species that live amongst the saguaro, including ourselves. Public lands, you know, continue to thrive because they're protected, and that feels like a very generous act.
Kimi Eisele's debut novel, The Lightest Object in the Universe, will be released this week. It tells the story of an apocalyptic time when the power of love and hope for humanity is tested. You can listen to an Andrew Brown interview with Kimi Eisele on the Arizona Spotlight page at azpm.org.
Like what you see on Arizona Illustrated? Visit our webpage at azpm.org to watch and share stories from this and previous episodes. And like us on Facebook, where you can watch stories, comment, and share your own story ideas. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where we share photos and links about the show and what's happening in our community.
Around the world, safe, clean, drinkable water has become more and more scarce, especially in drier climates like the one where we live in the Sonoran Desert. Some people have taken a very unique step to preserve this vital resource. This unique approach to recycling will no doubt raise some eyebrows, but it does save water and money, and might just nourish your garden by putting waste to work.
This house in Midtown Tucson may look like thousands of others in the city, but it's actually quite unique.
I had the vision of making it like a natural landscaping and living oasis, and so really, I was coming in from square one.
Since buying the property in 2010, Joe Sillens has been transforming his slice of the urbanized Sonoran Desert, going back to its roots in some ways. In the front yard, Sillens uses native and desert-adapted plants. They are grown in basins, which take advantage of water harvesting curb cuts that channel rainfall onto his land.
I've got some hackberry, quail bush, and jojoba, which are all great for local wildlife, and those plants have really thrived. I've got a mesquite and a palo verde that are doing great right now.
And when he needs to weed or trim, the backyard chickens get a salad bar. The chickens provide fresh eggs, and the adjacent trees in the garden produce fresh fruit.
Easy, Lily. Come on. Going for a trip.
They get much of their water from the outdoor shower Sillens installed.
And there's nothing better on a hot day than coming home from work for a cold shower. When that water comes out, as you can see, it just drains off the pavers here, and then it runs down the slope. And I've got a pomegranate tree planted nearby that takes advantage of that water. And so I'll be growing some nice fruit for a harvest coming up.
But the most unusual feature at this site, and probably the most talked about, is the room next to the Saguaro Ball guest house that he also built. It's a water-saving biological recycling system for your bathroom waste, your poop and urine, and it's not hooked up to the city's public sewer pipe.
This is my composting toilet. It's outside. It's the 55-gallon barrel batch method. So rather than the 5-gallon bucket method that a lot of people are familiar with, you just basically use this one for a few months, filling it up, and then you switch it out with another barrel. And then by the time the human manure is ready to remove and be used out in the garden or out in the yard, it's fully aged and you're not having to interface with any fresh material. Similar to composting in the garden, all the same ingredients, just slightly different in that you're contributing your own material rather than your kitchen scraps and things.
If you've never used one, don't despair. Sillens even has instructions at his outdoor commode. It includes information about the handy wood shavings close to the toilet paper.
And basically covering any toilet paper or any deposits that you've made, so the next person who comes along has a very user-friendly, pleasing experience. It just smells like wood shavings. It's not disgusting, well-managed composting toilet, has no discernible odors. A lot of times it's just social stigmas or psychological barriers that we have. I think having examples like this and having more people have the experience can demonstrate how well these systems function and how great of a solution this is for our water issues here in the desert.
I'm excited to have all of you here tonight. So it's interesting, I forget how many of these classes we've led, but each one seems to be getting more and more popular.
At Watershed Management Group in Midtown Tucson, like-minded residents can learn about various water-saving measures, including the toilets. The class covers basics such as permitting, options when it comes to toilets, and how to use the end result, the human manure, on your land.
I love it. I love after 4 months I have that finished processed human manure, take it out to my fruit trees, amend the soil around my fruit trees, and then grab an apple, grab a peach off that fruit tree. It's a delicious cycle.
Not gross.
Not gross at all.
Members say their goal is to increase knowledge and understanding, engage the community and regulators to bring these toilets out of the shadows.
I had that ick factor myself many years ago. It took me a while to get over it, but now it's part of the natural systems, natural processes.
Supporters admit these toilets will face resistance until the general population is more comfortable with the concept, so they recommend other steps you can take to conserve water. The biggest residential water guzzlers are our yards, so you can begin right there. By changing or removing irrigation systems, choosing your plants wisely, and amending the soil with kitchen compost, mulch, or humanure.
As we increase soil organic content, we enhance the ability for maintaining more soil moisture for our plants. Everything kind of boils down to how do we make the most with our limited resources. And all of this relates always back to watershed and water conservation.
Back at his home, Joe Sillen says he'll continue to look for ways to save water and other resources. His experience has been part of an ongoing evolution, he says, which he wants to share and hopes will inspire.
I definitely see our resources as limited and this planet is precious. So we've got to do what we can to preserve it and to make it better. So I'm certainly endeavoring to do my part.
In Arizona, there are regulations and a permitting process for installing composting toilets. For more information, contact your city or county government environmental quality department. You can also attend a free class from Watershed Management Group in Tucson. Go to watershedmg.org to find out more. Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Here's a sneak peek at a story we're working on.
This is a grand experiment. We actually don't know for sure how far the water will flow. We have a limited pipe diameter and limited amount of water we can put in. So we're going to use that, and it'll flow maybe 1 mile, maybe 2 miles. We'll find out over time.
Adding any kind of water regularly to the river is going to increase diversity and probably support more plants like willows and other vegetation that need more access to water, aquatic wildlife, insects that a lot of them start their life in the river and they're a good food source for fish and birds.
It is a very important symbolic gesture, I would say. There's no way we can bring everything back to the way things used to be, you know, when Tucson was a little town, but yet it brings us the concept of why we're here. Understanding the origins of Tucson makes us understand this region.
I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.